Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by Bet365. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for the shortened episode is BJ Cunningham. And together, the two of us are going to break down the midweek 3-match slate in the Premier League. It includes a whopper of a match Tuesday between Tottenham and Manchester City. So I'm sure that's why most of you are listening, to get our thoughts on that. We'll get to those right away. We'll also talk about the Coppa Italia final, the one LaLiga match, if there's anything there. And then we'll get out of here and get ready for the final match week of the Premier League, match weekend of the Premier League. A week from tonight, we're recording this on Sunday night. So, BJ, we have to start with Tottenham and Manchester City. The title race is still on. Arsenal's got the 1-point lead over City, but City do have the game in hand. This is the game in hand. It is wonderfully positioned. This is poised perfectly, right? Like
poetic almost.
It is poetic, and there have been situations like this in the past. We've seen it with United and City. We've seen it with Liverpool and Everton when Liverpool were charging for the City title right before the pandemic. That City ended up winning, with the most famous moment was the Vincent Kompany screamer against, who's at Leicester, right?
That was Leicester, yeah.
Spurs are Arsenal's eternal rival.
Yeah.
They are at home as a plus 550 underdog to Manchester City. City is minus 275. The draw here is 5-1. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that everybody in that stadium will be rooting for Manchester City.
Yeah.
Whether they do it outwardly, because I think some people do have some sort of like moral dilemma about actually like cheering if Erling Haaland scores a goal against the team, against your team. It's akin to like rooting for your team to be tanking, I guess, in American sports with draft lotteries, etc. But I've been there before with like I said, Everton and played Manchester City late in that season when City won the title by the skin of their teeth against Liverpool. I was rooting for City. Like I Everton were safe. They had nothing to play for. They were going to finish whatever they finished, like 14th. I don't think it's wrong. I do think it's a little crazy to think of it, to let it seep into your handicap.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually, it's like an important conversation to have, is like, yes, Tottenham fans will be rooting for Manchester City to win. No, Tottenham players are not going to let Manchester City just show up and roll all over them.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah, it's, as an Arsenal fan, it's like unfortunate, right? Like we get to this point and we're like, yes, this was the game we had circled on the calendar for so long, of like, this is the spot where they trip up. And unfortunately, how it's played out is, if Tottenham gets a result, most likely Arsenal will have the advantage going into the final day. I will say this, though. We are recording this on Sunday night, so Aston Villa and Liverpool have not happened yet. But with Tottenham beating Burnley, they have kept their top 4 hopes alive. And if Liverpool is able to beat Aston Villa, then Tottenham does have a backdoor route into the top 4. So they technically do still have something to play for, Michael, right? Like, again, if Aston Villa wins, and then it's done. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, is I want to wait until Tuesday. First, I want to see the lineups. I want to make sure Tottenham actually plays somebody, because I think there might be a chance that if, Aston Villa wins and the season's over, they might sit a few guys. But again, if it's a situation where they have a full strength squad and they're still battling for top 4, I think you still will get a fantastic effort from Tottenham, because guess who Aston Villa has on the final day? They have the team that can't lose right now, Crystal Palace. So the door is open for Tottenham. They got Sheffield away. So like, it could be a all-in must-win right here for them if Liverpool's able to win. But in terms of the matchup, because there's obviously a lot of things going off the field. First off, if you believe in bogey teams, like Tottenham is that to City. Since 2020, City is 4-5-1 against Tottenham. They've lost 5 times. I've not lost more than 5 times to any other team in the world during that time frame. In terms of the matchup, I know City's been, bludgeoning, Wolves and Fulham. Fulham looked like they did not care one bit on Saturday morning. Tottenham in the 2 meetings against City have gotten beaten down pretty bad if you look at the XG. Like there's no doubt about that. City's created close to 6 expected goals over the 2 meetings, which is not great. But the times Tottenham has been successful is when they decide to play very, very direct, beating them in transition. And really the only times that City has punished them is they've forced high turnovers and they've scored goals off of set pieces, which are the 2 biggest Achilles heels of Tottenham right now. So if Tottenham actually decides to do what is right, and I don't think Postecoglou is going to do this, but if they just play a little more passively and play more solid defensively and look to play very, very direct, it's their best chance of beating Manchester City in this matchup. And if you look at City's results against good teams away from home, it hasn't been that great all season long. There's obviously the stat that's still out there. They have not beaten a Big Six team outside of Manchester United in the Premier League this season. They did beat Tottenham away from home in the FA Cup, and then they beat Chelsea at a neutral site. But if you look at their recent results away from home, I mean, again, the match against Chelsea couldn't create over 1 expected goal. Away to Real Madrid, 0.8 expected goals, but scored 3 of them. They've lost to Aston Villa. They've lost to Arsenal. They can give up close to 3 expected goals against Liverpool at Anfield. Like, the performances have not been good away from home. So, I mean, if this match is being played in like November, Michael, what would City be? They'd be like minus 150, like minus 160 in that range, right? So,
I think so.
I'm going to wait because as we've seen, and it happened with Arsenal on Sunday, partly because of injuries and partly just because of must-win tax. But this line's only going up. I don't see a world where this is going to come back down to minus 250 or minus 230 where it opened. Like, we're going to get up to minus 300, like minus 350 range. And we're going to get Tottenham at close to maybe even 8 or 9 to 1 on the money line, getting them, plus 1.5 at plus money. So it's a wait and see type of thing, in my opinion, like in terms of lineups and what's the motivation, because I truly kind of do believe in like my heart of hearts that if they have nothing to play for and the result is Arsenal gets the title, and you're not going to see them just let the ball go in the back of the net, but I don't know if you're going to get the A++ performance. You might just get the B or the C performance.
Yeah, it's a fun one to handicap, honestly.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's we talk about this. We say it a lot, especially when we're talking tournaments. We'll talk a lot like Euros when we get there, and Copa America, all that. That there's so much more that can go into a single game when you like take it out of a big schedule like this. Like this is the only game on Tuesday, right? It's a Tuesday afternoon kickoff. So when you can create like a standalone game and then you lump in all the drama and the intrigue and the off the field stuff, it becomes so much fun to handicap. This is why betting can be so much fun. These kind of situations. Honestly, I'm with you. I think Tottenham is easily the right way to go here. And I know it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek joke for me to say this. You might know what's coming. I really don't think that the 0-0 is a bad bet here.
Yep. There we go.
I really don't think it is. It's 33 to 1 again. It's not going to win. But when you think about these two teams, right? Like if you like you said, there's a very real chance that Tottenham is a little more passive. And if Postecoglou decides to rotate and whatever, and some weird chicanery happens, like even then, those guys are going to go out there. Whoever's in the line is going to go out there, try to win and whatever. But and also, if City has the ball and Tottenham is not able to play their, all action press, get the ball back, win it, get it, move in, one touch stuff, like this game could become disjointed. I see a path here, so I don't know. I don't think that it's a terrible idea to back the draw, which is, if you want to just go that route and play it safe with a 5 to 1 payout, go right ahead. But I think that the 33 to 1 on 0-0 once again, and like I said, I know this is kind of, you can take it for a grain of salt because I love these kind of bets. I think it's going to be there. So
yeah, one more thing to note I think that's very, very important and in Tottenham's favor, is that James Maddison didn't play in either meeting, both the FA Cup and the 3-3 draw. He's incredibly important to Tottenham building up. And like I said, basically all of City's chances just came off Tottenham making huge, dumb mistakes in build up. The 3-3 draw, they had to start Emerson Royale and Ben Davies as their center back pairing. That's when they were going through the injury crisis and Romero being suspended. So him being there is very, very important because he's someone who can drop deep and build up. He has 205 progressive passes in 21.890s. The next closest on Tottenham is Pedro Porro with 180, and he's played 10 more matches than Madison. So he's everything to their buildup. Because not only that, is he's able to, like, his positioning on the field is very similar to Kevin De Bruyne, how Man City uses him, where you'll oftentimes see him near the touchline because he's, if teams want to play man-to-man, he pulls guys out of position, lets create space for guys through the middle. And I mean, like, City's still short. Like, they probably had their best out of possession performance against Fulham that they've had all season, quite honestly. But as we know from them, like, it's one thing to stop Fulham, who's a very, very average offense in terms of building out. Tottenham's still a very good build-up team. So it's a good matchup for them if they care, quite frankly.
We shall see. All right, so that's the Tuesday kickoff. Then we have two on Wednesday, one at 2:45 p.m. Eastern time. That's Brighton and Chelsea. I think this is pretty fair to say, of the three matches that we'll be previewing for the midweek, the least appealing from a betting perspective. Brighton plus 220, Chelsea traveling plus 105, and the draw here is 3-1. Feels like Chelsea's getting a lot of respect, but they've kind of earned it. We've tried to push back against it a little bit, but they keep getting results down the stretch here. Maybe a little bit of that no, you see it a lot when teams are kind of eliminated from playoff contention in the NHL or other sports. Then they start to, like, get their stuff together because there's no real pressure. And I know Chelsea's technically playing for, like, a spot in the top 6, etc. But I think this looks a little like too much respect, and I don't really want to back Brighton. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So I have Chelsea projected at plus 114, so I think the market is pretty close to kind of where it should be. And from a matchup perspective, Chelsea's buildup has been a lot better the last 3 or 4 matches. They, first half of the season, even more into the second half, they were doing the 3-1-6 buildup, trying to, like, create an overload on the last line, but they were isolating Moises Caicedo, and he just wasn't good enough. And there was just too far of a gap between that front line and the midfield. Well, now they're going with a 3-2-5, and they're inverting Cucurella, who is a really good ball-playing fullback. He's just not a very good defender. So having him in the middle of the pitch and having somebody like Caicedo able to cover him when teams go in transition, like, it does help Chelsea a lot, and they've been playing a lot better with that structure. Brighton, against Newcastle, they went with a little bit of a better defensive structure, 4-4-2, instead of just like the suicidal man-to-man they went with against City a couple weeks ago. If they do go man-to-man, which they shouldn't, because Chelsea has, guys like Gallagher and Cole Palmer who can really pull guys out of position and drop deep. It's just not a great matchup here for Brighton, but I'm not going to lay Chelsea at plus 105 on the road. So and even the total I have projected right at 3.5. So yeah, I think it's a fairly easy pass, and the number's about right.
Okay, the 3 p.m. kickoff on Wednesday is a lot more intriguing. It's United and Newcastle. Man U is plus 160 at home. Newcastle is a slight road favorite, plus 140. The draw here is plus 300. These odds are from Bet365. And a reminder that Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. If you have a gambling problem or know anyone who does, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. So essentially, it's a pick 'em. between United and Newcastle. It's been a mess for United. I thought, pretty gutsy performance against Arsenal. Weren't ever going to win. Um, go down 1-0 looks respectable here. Now, I don't know what to expect from this match. You figure it's a lame duck manager situation. It's at
Has to
home.
be.
Yeah. And it's at home, and you have no idea what the crowd's going to be like. They haven't been great at home. Uh, the rest of the Arsenal game was it for them, right? They had a chance to really play into the title race. They're not able to do it. And now they've got this home game, so it's their last home game of the season. You expect, okay, they'll want to go out on their shield in front of their home fans. Then it's a match against Brighton, which is going to be dead rubber on Sunday. So once again, a match where you can say there's top six implications, but I think that this could get off the rails very quickly, and you can get Newcastle minus 2.5 at close to 9-1,
Mm.
and I think if Newcastle does win, it's gonna look like that. It's gonna look similar to the Palace match where United doesn't have the kind of baggage and the kind of responsibility and pressure to play a more cohesive defensive game like they tried to do against Arsenal today. So this thing I think can fly off the rails, and Newcastle could run it up if they do win. The other option, of course, is you can say, okay, but United probably can get theirs, but I don't know. I think that number on Newcastle looks pretty appealing here for them to win by 3. I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah. So there was another thing that happened today against Arsenal that I thought was kind of interesting. And it was just another way that shows how bad Manchester United is that Arsenal recognized very quickly that, and they knew this going in, that they are so good out of possession and that the one way that United could beat them was in transition. So they handed United the ball, and going up inside the first 20 minutes obviously helps, playing with 1 goal lead. But they basically handed United the ball and said, here, break us down. Be like, you can't do it. And guess what? They couldn't do it. 0.6 expected goals, 14 shots. And, United's had been such a tactically flawed team for so long. And there was another instance today. They obviously like to play very direct. But when they were about to play direct, they kept inverting Diego Dallo into the midfield for some reason. And then they were sending the ball long. And so when the goal happened, Dallo was just standing in the middle of the pitch. And obviously, the screenshots of Casemiro not getting up to the back line and allowing Havertz to actually be on side for the goal. But it was just like, all right, well, if we're playing direct, like, what is the left back doing in the middle of the pitch? Like, what is going on? So just like another, just added to the list of, things that Ten Hag has done at United. But yeah, this match should be very fun, like very back and forth transitional type match. I mean, Newcastle's offense is incredible. Like, it's funny because if you were, a neutral and you haven't followed the Premier League and you're like, oh my gosh, like Newcastle put up 5 against Sheffield United, 4 against Burnley, like over their last 3 matches, they've almost created 10 expected goals. You'd be like, oh, well, they're playing Manchester United, right? Well, Manchester United is just as bad at the defense as Burnley and Sheffield United. So since January 30th, Newcastle is averaging 2.2 expected goals per 90 minutes. And Newcastle's still going through some injuries across their back line. It looks like Fabian Schär won't be back for this one, so it's going to be another Emil Kraft and Dan Burn as the center back pairing, which is, obviously not ideal, but their entire attack is healthy. What's funny, Michael, is if you go back to the previous meeting, because Newcastle's beaten now United twice, and in both meetings, Newcastle has come into those in just the most dire injury situation that you could even imagine. There's the famous 3-0 win that they had against them in the FA Cup after they had lost to Dortmund and drew Wolves, and basically had, no midfielders or no center backs really healthy to play for that match. They beat them 3-0 by just playing passively and letting United try to break them down, right? And they just stole the ball off them at the midway line and then scored. And then they beat them 1-0 and created 2.4 expected goals in November, coming off the match against PSG where they conceded like 6 expected goals and then went on to lose 3-0 to Everton after that, lost 4-1 to Tottenham, and then lost to AC Milan and got kicked out of and got knocked out of the Champions League. So even when Newcastle was going through a really rough time, they still found a way to throttle Manchester United. So my point is like this could be the exact same scenario. So I like Newcastle's team total. If you want to chase a bigger price, 2.5 is over 2.5 is plus 225. Over 1.5 is minus 150. I projected 2.3 goals for that match, and I also like Ishak anytime goal scorer at plus 120, just because he's amazing, and this is the worst defense, and he's been playing these bad defenses, and he keeps scoring against them. So why not against United?
Okay, that does it for the Premier League, the 3 matches in the Premier League. We'll be back again, obviously, Wednesday night to go through all of the 10 matches coming up. They'll all kick off on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. But before we get out of here, we'll talk about a couple more matches and a big one in Italy between Atalanta and Juventus, the Coppa Italia final. This one is a pick'em. The 3-way line is sitting plus 175 on Atalanta, plus 175 for Juve, and the draw is plus 210. What do you got here?
Yeah, I mean, how can you not bet Atalanta right now? Like one of the hottest teams on the planet. Obviously, just made the Europa League final against Juventus after knocking down Marseille. Juventus, they've kind of been locked into the top 4 or Champions League spot for a long time now. This is probably Allegri's one of his last matches with Juventus. But over the second half of the season, Atalanta has a pretty sizable better expected goal differential than Juventus because Juventus got a lot of their best results in the beginning of the season. They've actually gone 5 straight matches now where they've been winless, and they've actually lost the expected goals battle in 3 of those 5 matches. So, and that's playing teams like Torino, Lazio, Milan, Roma, essentially good teams. Like they have beaten up on the bottom half of the Serie A table for a long time now. But when they play good competition, they tend to struggle. They just played Atalanta in a 2-2 draw on March 10th. That was a pretty even match. And then earlier this season, it was a 0-0 draw. And they got pretty well outplayed. So with Atalanta playing much better, they'll be the ones controlling the possession. They've been much better at defending in transition, or at least they did a great job against a transition team like Marseille. So I like Atalanta draw no bet at minus 110 to lift the trophy at minus 110. Either one you want to play is totally fine. But yeah, I mean, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, and Atalanta's just got a huge win against Roma on Sunday that puts them into the Champions League spot. So just back in the hot team.
That one is also Wednesday afternoon. It's a 3 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. And finally, we'll talk some La Liga, a whole host of matches to go through the midweek. Anything that jumps out to you here before we wrap this up?
Yeah. Villarreal, Girona, over 3.5 at even money. So Villarreal started out the season under Quique Setién playing more of a possession dominant style, build out of the back, and they've since under Marcelino have transitioned to more of a 4-4-2, more direct type of team, which really bodes well here against Girona. Girona, again, I mentioned them against Alaves. Girona is a team that is playing a little bit more conservatively, not getting just completely exposed in transition, but they're still kind of vulnerable in that aspect. And Villarreal has been playing just some bonkers matches over the second half of the season, averaging well over 3 expected goals in their matches. So should be a very fun back and forth type of encounter, but Villarreal's defense is literally one of the worst in La Liga, bottom 5 in expected goals allowed. They are close to the bottom in final third to box entry conversion rate as well. So it's a decent matchup here for both offenses, quite frankly. So, and even Villarreal, I mean, they're allowing the most box entries in La Liga, so not really a team that defends too much. So, over 3.5 at even money for me.
Okay, short and sweet for this episode of Wondergoal. Obviously, that Manchester City Tottenham match will take up most of the attention this week. But as I said, we'll be back recording Wednesday night. to preview the final weekend of the Premier League. And then we'll be back for the Champions League final, and we will start getting going on our Euros preview episodes, etc. So keep an eye out for that. No rest for the weary here in Soccerland and at the Wondergoal podcast. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to our producer, Noah, and we will see you all again in a couple of days.